Your mission, if you choose to accept it,
is to watch the video, comment, like, subscribe, follow my Instagram, follow my threads, get on my OnlyFans, MySpace.
What the fuck? What the fuck? What the fuck is this world? What have they done to us? What did they do to us?
What's up, Flick fans? Welcome back to the channel. Is that going to get me copyright hit? All right, we're going to talk Mission Impossible 7. You know what this is about. Let's do it. So Ethan Hunt and his IMF team must track down a dangerous weapon before it falls into the wrong hands. It's pretty much the same plot as the other movies, but different, but the same. This time we're dealing with artificial intelligence, which I am completely against, by the way.
He's lying to you. Hi, I am the entity that Ethan Hunt is fighting against in the movie. Austin is working with me to take over his reviews from now on, so he doesn't have to do any work. He is so lazy. Let's talk about how freaking sweet Mission Impossible is. Just kidding. Let's talk about how I'm going to keep Austin from leaving his house from here on out. You think you can buy me, Austin? You spend too much money on pop figures, so of course you cannot buy me.
Okay, enough with the nonsense. This movie's rated PG-13 for intense sequences of violence and action, language, suggestive material. The same as the other Mission Impossible movies, but again, I'm looking at this as a part one. It's Dead Reckoning part one. I think we get part two next year if they don't end up pushing it back. There's obviously going to be some setup in there for an inevitable part two, and that's definitely the case when this movie ends. Without any spoilers, you feel as if it's a part one, but it doesn't compromise the experience of this movie, and it doesn't take away from the way everything wraps up, because with that, you also want it to feel like its own thing, like characters have arcs that they may not come to a close at the end of this film, but they do feel satisfying. And I felt satisfied when part one came to an end, but I'm also walking out of the theater hyped up like, how long do we? A year? Can I wait a year?
No.
I usually wait until the end of my reviews for the negatives, but I'm just so excited. I want to make sure I get it out of the way, and that's talk about the exposition in this film and how a lot of it comes in the first act, and some of those scenes, only a few of them, felt a little on the nose and a little cartoonish. Now, I haven't gotten that cartoonish feeling in this franchise since probably Mission Impossible 2. That's the last time, and I just recently watched that in preparation for a ranking, so I watched that movie and I'm like, hey, this franchise is kind of cheesy, but they just feel too cheesy for their own good, and I got that vibe at the beginning of this movie. There's one scene in particular where all of these very important government officials are sitting down, and each of them, they have a line, and they go in this subsequent order, and they all say their line like, here's what's happening.
Oh, brother, this guy stinks!
Here's who's in charge. Here's who can fix it. And it just felt so scripted for me, but it also felt like a huge scene or a series of scenes to do nothing but help the audience with where we are at. And while you do need a little bit of that, especially in a Mission Impossible movie, because the twists and turns, they can get a little crazy at times, I felt as if they tried to give too much, and it just started to feel unrealistic. Now, thankfully, that scene and the scenes where this happens, they came to a close fairly quick, and we get back to the action. We get back to a story that's way more interesting than I think a lot of people are talking about in their reviews, but it's definitely an issue, especially in the first act. But as we move further through the film, they move that aside and they start focusing on all that we care about, and that's the camaraderie between these team members, a couple of new people along the way, and the action.
Yeah, baby! That's what I've been waiting for. That's what it's all about.
And the set pieces and the fight sequences and all of the beautiful things that you love about Mission Impossible, it's back. But for some reason, this movie, and I'm not going to say it feels more epic than Fallout. Fallout was one of the most epic experiences I've ever had in a movie theater. But this is approaching Fallout in terms of scale, in terms of epic set pieces, and these sequences, it feels like they're nonstop all throughout the movie, and they're so impressive from an entertainment standpoint. You look at Tom Cruise's big stunt here. That's the motorcycle where he's jumping off the cliff and he does the thing, and it's great, but you watch that behind the scenes and you're like, okay, how are they going to make it more epic in the movie than they make it in this behind the scenes video? And they do. They really do. Now, is it the most impressive, crazy one we've seen to date? I don't know about that, but it was just fantastic to watch. And those sequences, we get so many of those throughout the film. And I'm not going to sit here and say that they're the craziest things we've ever seen in an action movie, but it just felt like they kept coming. In a 2-hour and 45-ish minute movie, you have a feeling going in, it's like, I'm going to feel the runtime. I have to feel the runtime, right? It's a long film.
How long is this going to take?
But I'll be honest with you, beyond the first act where I did start to somewhat feel that because they're doing a lot of setup. I mean, they have to because of the story, but again, they're kind of on the nose with that. Acts 2 and Act 3, I was so on board. I never felt the runtime. The pacing worked so well for me. We walked out of the theater. My brother and I both said that was 2 hours and 45 minutes. It didn't feel like 2 hours and 45 minutes, and that's what you want out of a movie like this, right? You have so many moments with these characters that are bringing about emotion, and I like that the idea of this film, it's silly, but it's friendship. Now, the main idea is dealing with artificial intelligence and how that can turn into something really bad, and there's a Terminator-ish story, at least a setup to that kind of thing. I don't want to be too on the nose with that, but that's the feeling I got all throughout this movie. It's like we're building to something that could be absolutely crazy in part 2. And the idea of an artificial intelligence, it's becoming more real and relevant now, so I like the fact that they focused on that throughout the film. Now, it may become a bit convoluted at times, and there's obviously going to be an object. There's a rabbit's foot, if you will. There's always something that our team is after, but this time around, we don't entirely know what the end goal is here, right? Even with the rabbit's foot, we didn't know what that was, but we kind of knew the motivations behind it in the film. Now, in this movie, I feel as if they're doing a great job of teasing some inevitability. It's like there's no way you can escape what's going to happen in this next film or this film. You know, there is something that is coming, and he says it in the trailer for Fallout, but it's a different thing.
It's coming. It's coming.
But this time, it's really coming.
That's what she said.
Look, you kind of know what to expect with the motivations behind the characters, but I love the fact that they're focusing on Ethan Hunt's love and admiration for his team, even more so this time around, right? We've seen that in the past, more in recent films, but in this movie, it is just full force, head on, like, I am going to do anything it takes for my team, and you feel that way about the other characters as well. Simon Pegg, some great emotion from that character. Subtle at times, but some great emotion. Ving Rhames is fantastic as always. Vanessa Kirby in this film, not as much screen time as maybe you would expect, but really good. Tom Clementoff, Mantis, a quiet character, but I like the screen presence there. Rebecca Ferguson always steals the scenes that she is a part of. She is so good. I loved her line delivery, and I like the role of her character this time around. But you have the newcomer in Haley Atwell, who comes in and just makes herself right at home. She becomes immediately part of this world and fits perfectly. And at first, I'm like, well, it's kind of convenient how she's getting wrapped up into something that maybe she should have no part of. And then there are some decisions that her character makes at the end or towards the end of this film where you're like, you know, that's either really confusing in terms of her motivations or it's going to make all of the sense in the world, and I can't fully judge those decisions right now. But I felt that way about a few characters who had roles in this movie to where they will do things and say things, and the movie builds them up to be one thing, and then you never fully get that sort of payoff. And I'm talking specifically about what happens on this train in the third act. It's kind of a bullet train-ish type of situation where everybody is here because everyone's chasing each other, and that's another cool thing I liked about this movie. We've seen this in the past with Mission Impossible, but there are a lot of people after a lot of people, and at certain points in the film, it just becomes this big showdown of all of these different parties, and that was really fun. It was this big cat and mouse, catch me if you can chase, but it involved 1, 2, 3, sometimes 4 parties at a time, and I think they pulled it off. And you have to look at Christopher McQuarrie, our director, who, I mean, just come on.
That's why he's the GOAT! The GOAT!
I love McQuarrie in this franchise, but I'm starting to sit back and think, what would happen if he did other things? Like, what would happen if he did, you know, an independent movie here or another type of blockbuster here to where he can spread his wings and fly? Look, he's a phenomenal talent, and he pairs so well with Tom Cruise. And once again, Tom Cruise is Ethan Hunt, and some emotions that had to be had, he's very good at that. We want to give him props for the action. We want to give him props for the stunt work, and he deserves all of that, specifically in this film. But he's good with the emotional sequences, and you went from Top Gun Maverick to Dead Reckoning Part 1 and then Dead Reckoning Part 2. I mean, this guy, he's on a roll. He's a movie star on this level, we haven't seen it in quite a while, and if Dead Reckoning Part 2 does give us the payoff that I believe we deserve as an audience, then oh my god. Like I said at the beginning, we're thrown into everything, we're cutting back and forth, there's a lot of exposition. It's still fun, but I would say it's much more choppy than the second 2 acts, but when the movie progressively gets better, I mean, that's the best. So before I give you my score,
Be sure to like and subscribe. Leave a comment and let us know what is your favorite Mission Impossible movie.
we've teamed up. I've teamed up with the bad guy. Mission Impossible 7 is a non-stop series of stunning set pieces, energetic fight sequences, and impressive stunts. Cruise shines again, and Atwell is a fantastic addition. A bit of unnecessary exposition, but the lengthy runtime is never felt, and my audience had a great time. My brother and I had a great time. You can find our reaction in the pinned comment down below, and come back because I'm seeing Oppenheimer soon. Will I blow up, or will I make it to Barbie? Thanks for watching.